From the banks of Dewey Lake, it's the Dewey Pod Monster.
Welcome back. My name is John, and this is the Dewey Pod Monster podcast. This is a weekly podcast, and it is about consumption. Next week, it might be about Timecock, but until then, it is about consumption. We are, of course, proud members of the You Run Podcast Network. You can find all of our old episodes, all of our new episodes, and all the other great shows on the You Run Podcast Network at yourunpodcast.com. With me this week is the host of the Dewey Pod Monster podcast. His name is Sean. And Sean, how are you doing today?
John, I'd give all the Chalconite and Ferbillion if I could spend 2 units with a master songmaker.
Okay. Yeah, well.
Oh, yeah, sure. Whatever.
Whatever.
Thanks for the humoring.
So, yeah, this week's a little bit different for those out there in podcast listening land. We usually talk about some things that we've been watching. We're still going to do that kind of, but instead of things, we're going to just focus on one thing because it's like 4 or 5 hours long. We both watched it and we're fans of Wrestler Corner. So
Wrestler Corner was long overdue. So we felt like we needed to just kind of visit it. I mean, we really haven't talked about Wrestler Corner that much.
We dipped our toes in a little bit when I was watching Rivals a couple weeks ago, but in general, it's been a minute,
it needs a little bit of an extended cut.
It's true. So this might be more like a double feature episode, but we're going to start out. We're talking about the new docuseries documentary. I think it's just called Hulk Hogan. I don't really know. It's
Real
on Netflix.
American.
Am I Real American? Piece
Real
of shit.
American.
Hulk Hogan just came out. At the time of this recording, it came out last Friday, something like that. Wednesday, sometime in the last week. So it's pretty new. I would say spoilers, but I don't really care. This isn't a fictional story for the most part.
He was a real person.
You know,
there's real things about his life. It's not really a spoiler.
And no. And I got a feeling if you're going to watch the Hulk Hogan documentary, you probably know a lot more about Hulk Hogan than you might have realized going in. I'm going to kick it over to you to start. So I don't know if you had any expectations on it. I really didn't. I just kind of wanted to be entertained and whatnot. But some overarching thoughts on Hulk Hogan, Real American turd?
Yeah, I didn't. I guess I'll preface this by saying I didn't really have expectations. I didn't know. I should have known, but I didn't really know actually until the very end because I didn't watch any of the credits that this was actually a WWE production. So I think going into it, if you know that, you kind of have to realize, or that they're not going to give you the full details.
I think they have a contract with
Netflix.
I think they have a contract with Netflix for a while. But
you're going to get the sanitized, the WWE washed version of Hulk Hogan or any real person that they have under contract or have some kind of storytelling rights to. So I didn't really have. I didn't have any real expectations of what they would talk about. I was hoping that they would cover, basically his career and hopefully some of his outside of the ring activity. So I think to kind of kick it off, what I will say is this has interviews with people like Cody Rhodes and Jesse the Body. There's Linda Hogan, his ex-wife. She talks a lot. There's a lot of real unreleased video, like home video that she took or that someone in the family took. Nick Hogan has some participation. Brooke Hogan there's only like voiceover
archival
from
footage.
her. Yeah. She's not, she was not asked to participate, or she declined to participate or something. We have a little bit of voiceover from Vince McMahon. We have Donald Trump make some appearances. Like they actually have him talking, not archival footage, like actual current day footage. They however long
they
ago.
decided, they being the people that are in charge of his time, decided that there's not enough going on in the world right now. You can stop and do an interview about Hulk Hogan for however long that takes, for 20 minutes of footage over the course of this.
I'd say it's more like 5 minutes.
I don't even know if it's that much,
but still,
yeah,
whatever. Triple H talks. People, the regular people that you would expect to see. Brian Blair talks, who's one of the killer bees from like the early days of WWE. But yeah, so I didn't have big expectations going into it. I know a lot about Hulk Hogan. I know a lot about the situations that they talk about in the documentary. So, they go over his early gimmicks. They go up how he got discovered. So he was like playing in a band. He said he was like always the fat kid. he grew up kind of poor. His dad was a laborer, construction worker, and his dad wasn't really into wrestling. Hulk Hogan admitted he thought it was real up until he was an adult. And I can understand that.
I've heard it was up until like WrestleMania 3 or something like that, where he thought, or WrestleMania 1 or whichever one. I thought he said something like that. He thought it was real up until like one of the WrestleManias.
No, because he participated in all the WrestleManias. He wouldn't have thought it was
I'm
real.
aware of that.
He basically said he thought it was real up until,
I don't know.
He thought it was real up until he went to a live wrestling match and got to sit ringside. And I don't remember who the wrestler was that he saw, but he saw them talking in the corner like, hey, hit me harder. Stuff like that.
Tatanka and Yokozuna.
Yeah, oh yeah, for sure. But like I've watched like things about this since I've watched it, and I can totally understand that. Like, if you're someone who grew up in the time when kayfabe was still a thing, when they hid all the secrets, you didn't realize it. I could see you thinking like, well, why don't they just brawl with each other? But I could see it where in that day and age where people would be like, they might not see it enough. And he even said he watched some, I forgot what wrestling federation it was, like Central Florida or some kind of Southern Florida wrestling or something, where that was his exposure to it. So he always thought that you had to be a tough guy, and that when he saw it in person and saw that they were talking to each other, he realized that maybe it was something he could do. Some wrestlers came into a bar where he was playing bass in a band, and they were like, hey, you should try this thing out because you're like a really big dude. And then he kind of went through the circuits, different circuits. So yeah, that's the very quick rundown of the early part of the documentary series. John, I'll let you talk.
I actually think they did a pretty good job with making just like a career retrospective of his up to a point. Was it 4 episodes of this?
Yes.
Like, I'd say the first 3 episodes. Yeah, I'd say the first 3 episodes are all pretty good. It really primarily focuses on his wrestling career. It says a little bit like, it will take a minute and be like, oh, he went off and did Suburban Commando or No Hold, whatever
it was.
Yeah, but it really doesn't. It really glosses over those pretty quick.
It doesn't over a lot of his wrestling career. I mean, they go WrestleMania 1, then WrestleMania 3, and then WrestleMania 7. You know, just they kind of pick the shots that they want to shoot on what he's going to talk about.
Well, and that's kind of fair. I mean, the guy's career went
years,
45 years, something like that. Like, if you did 20 minutes on every WrestleMania, you'd still be watching it. So
the other thing I want to mention that we didn't say at all, I mean, it's Hulk Hogan. He's interviewed exclusively. This was like 3 months before he died. And, you know, so they got him
supposedly
talking about
supposedly it's the last footage of him before he died.
Yes.
Which I don't know if I believe that. But
I mean, I think it's his last interview for sure.
I don't know if I believe that. I mean, he was doing that he was showing that shitty beer, doing that tour all over the place. Like right before he died. Like, I don't know that they did another like professional feature on him after that, but I got to think he popped up on some bullshit being like, you know what, brother, you got to drink this shitty beer because I made it or whatever. And
I pissed it.
I refuse. Yeah, exactly. But yeah, the early part of it, basically everything in the first 3 episodes, I think was pretty good. You're right. It does gloss over a ton. It kind of makes Bret Hart look like a whiny bitch, which I kind of feel that way about Bret Hart anyway. He's very, like, in my opinion, I think he's very full of himself most of the time.
I think if you're a wrestler, you have to be full of yourself. And for the record, I do not share your opinion on Bret Hart, but you're allowed your opinion, even though it's
my opinion
wrong.
Is usually wrong.
Yes,
that's fine.
We've established this.
But I mean, the documentary looks good. I don't feel like Hulk Hogan is very full of himself too, and like you said, wrestler kind of has to be to an extent. Whatever. I think he's being as down to earth as you can be for his position at that point, going through that part of his career. And let's be real, like when Hulk Hogan was going through the early parts of his career, I didn't know about Bubba the Love Sponge or any of the like shit that came later. Like, he just was the big dude in yellow on TV, who eventually became the big dude who like pretended to be a biker on TV and then went back to being the big dude in yellow. Like, I always thought Hulk Hogan was like, you know, he's the icon for a reason. He's the biggest, most recognizable person from wrestling, arguably of all time. I'd say if it's not him, it's who else is up there? Like Stone Cold, Macho
No, I
Man,
think it's
maybe.
him. I don't think if
I think it's him too, but I'm saying if it's not him, there's only a handful of people you can even say are like
if you want to know my God's honest truth, I would say that without him, there probably are none of these other names that you're going to mention. So
I totally agree.
Moot.
I totally agree
it's
with
moot
you.
to bring up.
No,
other people.
I would agree with that. I guess the only thing I would have liked to seen more of is I don't necessarily need them to go like break down more of his career, like match by match or mania by mania. I would have liked to seen more people like pop up and talk about his wrestling career though, because we've seen, was it Jimmy Hart and the other dude who's always on these in the same thing, another announcer guy, and I can't think of his name now. Regardless,
Lawler?
We've seen
Jim Ross.
Well, he was in it too. Wasn't Jim Ross? Wasn't Lawler? I can't remember.
I mean, Lawler shows up for literally like 5 seconds. He's like, yeah,
I know.
I didn't think he would make it. And then that was like the only time he even showed up, which I thought, I don't know. You would have thought they would have got more of him talking about him since they supposedly were like somewhat close for a short amount of time.
Well, and that's kind of where I'm going. Like Hacksaw Jim Duggan pops up at the very end of this, like when they were around his funeral and stuff. I'm like, I would like more of him popping up on this. Or obviously a lot of the guys that he would have wrestled against are long dead now because he's been around forever. But there's a lot of guys that are still around too that could have had something to say about him. Like,
I was surprised there's no Brutus. There was like no on-screen interview with Brutus the Barber, Ed Leslie. Like he's not. They talk
there was
about
no
him in
Undertaker.
passing.
There was. Was Shawn Michaels on it? I think they show Shawn Michaels, but I don't think
he may have talked he was another really short piece.
Yeah, if he talked, he's only on it for like 30 seconds.
Yeah,
I know they talk about him talking shit about Hogan, like when he did his WWE comeback.
Yeah, oversold the match and all the moves, and
yeah. But like a lot of those guys who are still alive, I mean, you don't have to break down every match, but just kind of talking about like what Hogan was in their era, like how it, basically once you got past his really early days, like Jesse Ventura talks about that. He's like, you wanted to be on the ticket with Hogan, whether you fought him or not, because it meant you got a better payday.
Yeah.
Blah, 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 that type of stuff. I thought that was kind of as interesting, if not more interesting than the stuff that Hogan had to say about himself, because we know the majority of that. And then we get to the 4th episode and it just feels like, it's a lot of stuff that they're kind of glazing him, but they're kind of like crash course over like all the dumb shit that like, I think a lot of us knew he was a piece of shit well before like the 2015-ish.
Yeah, Gawker stuff.
Yeah, whenever that happened. I think a lot of us knew he was kind of a turd before that, but like they cram so much of that into the last like 30 minutes of this documentary, and then it's like, and then he died.
Yeah. And here's 15 minutes of after he died and the aftermath of that.
Right. So I guess that would be my big thing, is like either hack off the 4th episode altogether and just leave it as this like retrospective of his career where you are kind of blowing him for being the icon that he is, which is kind of a puff piece, but like I get it. Like he's Hulk Hogan. Like there's a reason why he's the face of wrestling, for the last 4 decades or 5 decades, whatever you want to call it. That, or go the other route, which obviously I don't think Hogan would have wanted to be involved with it, and really talk about all the shit that made him shitty. Really kind of pepper that in over all 4 episodes. Kind of be like, he was great as a wrestler, but he did all this cocaine and made this fucking movie called No Holds Barred, and talk about that. Whatever the case is, like either make it a total puff piece or don't. Is kind of where it feels like to me by the 4th episode it wore thin, because it just felt like you said, they kind of glazed over it as opposed to really getting into it.
Well, yeah, I mean, they talk about the steroid stuff and him and McMahon, and they kind of go back and forth about, I could have sold him out, brother, or not sold him out, but I could have ratted on him and he would have still been in jail, that kind of shit. They glaze over a lot of that. They kind of really basically touch on how he embellishes just about everything about his career. The only thing really, I think it was Bruce Pritchard that said something like, every time Hogan would tell the story, Andre the Giant would gain 100 pounds, and by the time you would hear the story now, I mean, you could look on YouTube and look up Hulk Hogan lies before he died, and there are hours of footage for you to watch of him talking about how, basically Andre the Giant was 16 feet tall and weighed 5,000 pounds, and he body slammed him, and, he wrestled elephants, and I don't know, he flew around the sun to slow down the spinning of the earth or something, a la Superman. I guess he did the Earth. He flew around the Earth. But there are so many.
Then he saved Santa.
Yeah, there are just so many embellishments and so many lies and things that they don't really get into. They talk about the Gawker thing, but they don't really get into in depth. There are things that they just don't really talk about that have been covered in other media. So it's not like the stories aren't out there. And I thought one thing that was really kind of humorous to me is they talk about the Bret Hart Yokozuna match at WrestleMania. I want to say WrestleMania 8, the Las Vegas one, where Yokozuna pins Bret Hart to take the belt. And then he kind of challenged Yokozuna and Mr. Fuji, kind of like challenge anybody to come in and take the belt. And it's just an excuse for Hogan. It's one of his comebacks to come back and get the belt. And that WrestleMania,
that's pre WCW, isn't it? That's like after he got,
that was like
fired.
Hollywood, after Hollywood. He went to Hollywood, he came back. The way the story's also told is very disjointed chronologically.
Mm-hmm.
So they kind of like mash things together that didn't really happen in that sequence, which, okay, whatever. They're telling a story. This is fucking story time. It's WWE story time. But that is the infamous WrestleMania where he shows up with the big Elvis sunglasses because he has this huge shiner that is supposedly from him and Brutus the Barber out doing jet skiing, and the jet ski pops up and hits him in the eye, brother. And they show him
because Brutus punched him in the eye, or
no, it's supposedly Randy Savage, and that, that's like the story. Yeah. But they show him with the big sunglasses. They never address the eye, the big shiner that he had, this, the real gnarly shit and all that. And it's more so, I don't know, they do touch on things like his Hogan Knows Best and the series and how that really kind of drove his family apart. But that was also because he had been so conditioned at that point to be a road wrestler that when he was home, he didn't really know how to be a regular human being. Like it was hard for him to detach where Hulk Hogan ended and Terry Bollea started and vice versa, which I thought was interesting. Like, I don't have any doubt that he was probably at some point like a really good father or a well-intentioned father. Like when he was home, he took care of his kids. His kids clearly loved him, and his wife thought the world of him for a period of time. They go through like his divorce and kind of how Linda rubs some shit in his face, and it adds a very human element to him that I guess when you hear about, the sex tape and you hear about him calling, people the N-word and all this stuff on tapes that were in Discovery during the trial, which really started to turn a lot of opinion about Hulk Hogan. They don't even talk about that. Like, they don't talk about really, they have people like Booker T talking about it.
They very much so gloss over it. Like they mention that he used some racial language at one point, and that's like all they say about it.
Yeah, but they don't reference when it was used, which we all know.
Right. Or
if you followed anything, when that happened and when that became out in the open, which they, I don't know. So I guess for me, like, long story short, I thought it was good even if you do know a lot of things about Hulk Hogan, it's nice to hear him be able to kind of tell it in his own words, but it's very much, like you said, it's very much a puff piece in the respect that they don't really get into many controversies. I mean, like I said, the steroid trial was such a big part of his career, and he basically goes on Arsenio and he lies. He bald-faced lies about him, using steroids and other
he admits
substances.
To that in this documentary.
He does.
Piece. Like, he admits to
he
admitted
to it in court, so it's hard for him not to admit to it. But yeah, I mean, I just wish it would have went a little bit more in depth. And like I said, when I realized at the very end, because they always just skip the credits on Netflix, right? When I realized at the very end that this was a WWE production, which I should have known, right? We have we have Triple H. He's talking. He's not going to talk if it's not a WWE thing that they have control over. Half these people, Jesse the Body has so many things to talk about Hulk Hogan and squashing the union and ratting him out to Vince and all this stuff. But even Jesse the Body tells stories. He almost, I would say like 90%, 95% of the things that Jesse talks about are all saying nice things about Hulk Hogan when he doesn't have to. Of course, they probably had him sit down for an 8-hour interview.
His usual.
And they probably
edited his usual MO either.
They probably edited the shit out of what he had to say. So I would have liked it to have been a little bit more in depth to talk about the controversies, just to be like an overall portrait of him as a person, a very conflicted person, and whatever. I mean, you would have to approach it a totally different way. But I did like the first couple episodes, especially the first episode, because I didn't know all that much about his past, his history, how he got through these different places. Like I knew he was in WWF. He went off to do Rocky 3. Vince Sr. said, don't come back if you're going to do this movie. And then he goes to, Vern Gagne's
Minnesota.
thing. Yeah, in Minnesota and does the wrestling. And that's really where he develops more of the character and going through the different thing. I didn't know anything about his brother ODing and him feeling very responsible. His brother was a biker that ran away from home basically kind of early. And he showed up one day and he asked Hulk to help him out. And Hulk said, yeah, I'll give you some money. And his brother turned around and used the money to buy drugs and he OD'd and he died. And Hulk really kind of carried that on his shoulders. And you could tell it really bothered him. And that was I don't think through all the misgivings that I've seen about Hulk Hogan, I've never seen him really get emotional or talk in depth. I forgot what it was, but he couldn't even, was it his brother? It was something that he couldn't even talk about. And I can't remember what that was.
It was his brother after a certain point. He was able to tell the story. And in fairness, there's a little bit more to, he just gave him some money and then he OD'd. He gave him some money and he put him in a hotel and was going to get him into rehab the next day, but he had this event to work. So he was going to go do the event, then essentially go get his brother and take him to wherever the rehab was. And in the interim is where it sounds like, I don't know the exact timeline, but basically he didn't see him alive again after that. So that's where that happened. But I do think it humanized him a little bit. The problem is we know him to be such a liar that it's how much does this humanize you? I don't know. But it does make him a little bit more relatable as a human being. You do see some of the, like you said, some of those, not necessarily flaws, but those, you see him opening up or softening up again around his brother, around his family, honestly, I always thought his wife, Linda, was a fucking idiot from that Hogan show, Hogan's Knows Best. I thought she was just really obnoxious. I actually found myself thinking oh, okay, she's not a total dolt by the end of this. She's actually, if nothing else, she positioned herself very well to seem like a well-balanced human that happened to fall for this guy who was Hulk Hogan.
Yeah, so I don't really have much else to say about it.
Yeah, I mean, it's worth watching. I would say that. I don't know if we're going to hot dog it or not, but I'd say it's definitely worth watching. It's just, don't go into it expecting anything more than a Hulk Hogan puff piece. And even in the fourth episode where they are oh, it's not all sunshine and candy, bad shit happens too. It's yeah, but does it? Not the way that they're calling it. So
yeah, they don't get into it, even though they kind of tease that it's oh,
right,
big shit's gonna happen. Big shit did happen, but you just won't know anything about it watching this.
Right.
But like I said, there's so much other stuff on YouTube that if you're really interested to hear all the shortcomings of Hulk Hogan, there's no shortage of that kind of stuff. So you could always
there's that.
Search that out after.
I'd go as far to say a lot of the A&E biographies, they don't directly go at them like that, but they tell you a lot more of that. You almost have to read between the lines a little bit, but any of those, they tell you more about it. And I'm sure there's a Dark Side of the Ring where they talk shit about him. I just don't know which one it is off the top of my head.
I don't think they do.
No?
He wasn't really involved in some of the shit that went down on the episodes that they talk about. The kind of stuff they talk about, he wasn't, he didn't have anything to do with Chris Benoit or Brian Pillman or any of that shit. So there's no real, he shows up tertiarily as a side character in some things, but there's no specific episode addressing Hulk Hogan as far as I know.
Well, shit my pants. Sounds like a good time to take a break and come back and talk about another yoked up buff dude in He-Man. Not that He-Man, not the new one that's not out yet. We did not get any special screeners or anything of that. We're going to talk about He-Man from 1987?
Yes, 1987.
1987. When we come back right after this, brother.
In a world.
Again? Are you still talking about this Patreon thing?
Of course! I'm so excited to talk about all the perks, like early access to each episode and Discord. We have Discord!
Okay, Discord. What else?
You're really going to have to check it out for yourself, because some of it is so amazing I can't even mention it here.
Okay, this Patreon thing says I can be a dirt biking dickhead? Is that supposed to be a good thing?
Of course! If you want to be a dirt biking dickhead or maybe just a hot dogger, check out our Patreon at patreon.com/DeweyPodmonster for all the details.
I'm going back to bed.
Hey, Sean, what are you doing this afternoon?
I think I'm going to listen to Podcast in the Woods.
That's awesome. Did you know that they're the newest member of the You Run Podcast Network?
I didn't know that. Is that true?
That is true. Have you checked out Podcast in the Woods before?
I've been on the show. Hell yeah, I've listened to it before.
So have I. And it's always great listening to Boomer and Gabby chat about horror movies, maybe have a beverage or two, and just have a good old time hanging out in the woods, talking about scurry movies.
And sometimes boobs.
And sometimes boobs. Check them out. You can find them now at the You Run Podcast Network at yourunpodcast.com. All right, so as mentioned, we're going to be talking about the movie Masters of the Universe from 1987, and we have a third-party review. This one is anonymous, and I'm not entirely sure what movie this person watched, but they say they give this half a star out of 5, and the review goes, "Where were He-Man? In the entire 5 episode, He-Man had less screen time than the cat. Take that how you will." Again, half star out of 5. So,
Somebody has
before we get to
trolling
clip
somebody.
notes, I don't even know what the fuck he's talking about, but
Didn't
I thought
Kevin
he was
Smith
maybe
do
talking about,
the Kevin Smith
yeah, but this is
cartoon?
reviews from 2021. So I want to say the Kevin Smith cartoon's newer than that, but I could be wrong. Either way, Sean, before I get into clip notes and all the rest of the stuff, what's He-Man about? Let's start there. What is this movie about?
All right, so for that we go over to
Good luck.
IMDb. Yeah, we go. Well, no, I think I have some clarity. So we go over to IMDb. We type in the words "Masters of the Universe." It brings up a film from 2026, but we're not going to talk about that one. Like you said, we're going to talk about the one from 1987 that gets a PG rating. It's an hour and 46 minutes long. It gets a 5.4 out of 10 with 48,000 ratings. And this is on the popularity scale. It's 2360 out of some number, which is up 2,087 places from some other number. And
Big jump.
yeah, a little bit. We go to the top of the page, and we're never quite sure if it's the storyline or the plot, but Gwildor told us we shouldn't read it if it's not on top or something. I don't even know. But anyways, it's on the top. We're going to read it. It says, "The heroic warrior He-Man battles against the evil Lord Skeletor and his armies of darkness for control of Castle Grayskull." And if we scroll on down to the bottom here, we go to the storyline. It's a little bit long, but it comes care of Claudio Carvalho from Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. And, you know, Claudio's written in a few times, and this time he says, "On the planet Eternia, Skeletor and his dark army overthrow the sorceress of Castle Grayskull, expecting to acquire her power. He-Man, his old friend Duncan Man-at-Arms, and his daughter Teela are attacked by Skeletor soldiers, and they defeat them. They also rescue their prisoner, the inventor and locksmith Gwildor. He explains that he was lured by Evil Lyn that used his invention, the Cosmic Key, to open the gates and seize the Castle Grayskull. He-Man and his friends retrieve the prototype of the Cosmic Key, trying to release the sorceress, but they are defeated by Skeletor and his army, and Gwildor uses his key to open a portal for them to flee." That's right, that's what that says. "They come to Earth but lose the key. Meanwhile, Julie Winston, who grieves the loss of her parents in a plane crash, and her boyfriend Kevin Corrigan find and activate the key, believing it is a foreign music instrument. On Eternia, Evil Lyn locates the Cosmic Key, and Skeletor sends her with a group of mercenaries and soldiers to vanquish He-Han and his friends and bring back the key. Will they succeed?" He-Han.
So
Yeah.
I'll go ahead and give you a second to breathe here before you get into cast
who
and
needs to
stuff.
breathe?
For clip notes
Ain't
on
got
this.
time to breathe.
For cliff notes on this, I just said Masters of the Universe features Dolph Lundgren as He-Man, who tries to find his keys or something along those lines to the set. Who tries to find his keys to the Flash Gordon set before Skeletor does. The magic keys send He-Man to modern day Earth, where he must drive around aimlessly for a while before Skeletor shows up and does bad guy stuff. Eventually they fight, I guess. So who are these people that are fighting? Who's in this movie, Sean?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we've got, of course, you kind of mentioned it. We have Dolph Lundgren, who plays He-Man. He was in Rocky IV, Universal Soldier, Kindergarten Cop 2, the Expendable series, and of course, we just recently talked about him in I Come in Peace. We have Frank Langella, who plays Skeletor. He was Dracula in 1979's Dracula. He was in Brain Scan. He was in Junior. He was in Cutthroat Island and Muppets Most Wanted. We have Meg Foster, who plays Evil Lyn. We talked about her in They Live, but she's been in Leviathan, The Lords of Salem, Jeepers Creepers 3, and of course, my favorite, Blind Fury. We have Billy Barty, who plays Gwildor, legendary little person actor we talked about in Body Slam, but he was in Legend, and he was in Willow, and he was in lots of Mickey Rooney movies in the 1920s and 1930s. Okay. Long time ago. We have Courtney Cox, who plays Julie Winston. She was Gail Weathers from the Scream series. She was Monica and Friends. And who could forget her as Alex P. Keaton's love interest in Family Ties? This also has James Tolkien, who was in Back to the Future, War Games, Top Gun. This is from first-time director Gary Goddard, who previously wrote the screenplay of Tarzan, the Ape Man with Bo Derek. This movie had a budget of $22 million. It had a gross of 17.3. So not financially viable for Canon Group and Golan Globus. Unfortunately, this is one of the movies that it's attributed for kind of the downfall of that studio, along with Superman 4, The Quest
Over the
for
Top,
Peace.
and Over the Top. They all came out right around the same time.
Yeah, I think Quest for Peace was the one that really, Superman 4 was the one that really kind of sunk them because they just poured so much money into it. And then this movie came. This movie was like, it's kind of legendary for having a lot of production issues, a lot of budgetary issues. They couldn't do some of the things they wanted to. They wanted to have a lot of the movie on Eternia rather than Earth, and it just didn't work out. They ended up using a lot of the props and some of the set design and some of the sets in Jean-Claude Van Damme's Cyborg. And then I heard that the last 3 days of filming for this movie had to be suspended because they ran out of money. And the director had to basically beg for the money to do it. And that's why the end of this movie is really like foggy and it's dark because they were already like tearing the sets down and shit. So yeah, good times.
I think my favorite budget story with this movie, and who knows how accurate this is, but from what I heard, so this is Dolph Lundgren's second acting role after Rocky, from what I was seeing with this. Rocky 4, yeah. And I guess they wanted to dub this movie because his English at this point was just not that good. And I'm not saying that as a slight on Dolph Lundgren for whoever.
That's what the notes out there listening. Of like everything says.
Right. It's just wasn't there yet. But they refused to pay for dubbing of all the things that they cut. So that's why a lot of his dialogue is not that great in this movie.
I gotta disagree. I think he sounds
with me or with
that point, not with you. I think he sounds fine. Like he doesn't sound any worse than he does now. He has a few.
I think he sounds fine. I mean, we're going to get into like the issues with it, but of all the things that I think are going to come up over the course of this conversation as a problem.
Yeah. Dolph Lundgren's accent.
I'll put it out there now. Dolph Lundgren in general is not like, I think I'll put it out there now. I think Dolph Lundgren did pretty much everything he could with what he was given to make this movie, considering where he was as an actor at this time, what this movie is, what its limitations are, and quite frankly, what his limitations are just as someone who's learning a new language and learning a new craft. Like, again, this movie at the heart of it is a kid's movie. The second one that we've done in recent memory now, which I'm not thrilled about, because I've now spent 2 Saturdays at home, stone sober, in the middle of the day watching kids' movies. I'm not thrilled about that. But there's nothing
from the neighborhood to sit in your lap while you watched it.
I did. They said, "Fuck off, old man. I don't want to watch it."
Well, hey, you tried.
So,
gotta give you points for that.
Yeah. Anyway, whatever we say about this movie going forward, Dolph Lundgren's not the problem here.
Yes.
Like he's
agreed,
fine. And I think he looks really good for the role. Like he's obviously cut from stone. Like whatever he looks. I mean, if you said pick an actor that was around in 1987 to play He-Man just on looks alone, I think you'd be kind of hard pressed to find someone who fits the role from a aesthetic standpoint more than Dolph Lundgren.
Yeah, I agree.
So, yeah. So no negative there. I kind of skipped over why I wanted to ask though, because we got into Dolph Lundgren and budgetary stuff. Do you have a history with He-Man or with Masters of the Universe? Like I could say for me, I was already past like this cartoon when it came out. Like it was around when I was a kid, but I didn't care about it. I was a little like maybe a couple years past the age group that was watching it at that point.
How old are you?
Giving me that look? I'm 43.
Yeah, that doesn't make sense to me.
Okay. Well, maybe I wasn't. I don't know. I didn't watch it as a kid.
Okay.
Old enough, not old enough. I don't really care. I didn't really watch it as a kid. Don't remember seeing this as a kid either, the movie. I remember watching it about a year ago and being confused by it, but I don't really have a like any personally. I don't have any nostalgic connection for this. I don't know if you do.
Yeah. So like when I was a kid, this came out in 1987. I was 10 years old. So this would have been like prime time for me to be into this. I watched the cartoon. I had the toys. I had Castle Grayskull. I had Snake Mountain. I had Battle Cat and the bad guy, the Skeletor one. I had, a bunch of toys, right? My friends had them. These were toys that we played with. So I was prime age, especially when the toys and the cartoon came out. I think by 1987, He-Man had already kind of run its course. And I think a big thing with this, I did see this movie. I saw it in the theater. My mom took me to it. I remember watching it and being like, wow, that's so much different than the cartoon. It's like not, it kind of is, but it kind of isn't. This movie, I think, number one, as a standalone movie, is very hard to get into if you had never seen the cartoon. They expect a lot out of you to know. Like let's say when they make the Ninja Turtles movie, right? When the Ninja Turtles live action movie comes out, they go through and they explain like, oh, the Ninja Turtles.
Where these things come from?
Yeah, they kind of explain the backstory a little bit. And that's kind of been par for the course for a lot of, superhero movies and the Marvel movies and all this stuff. You might not know all the backstory about these. You may be culturally aware that these characters exist, but they give you backstory generally. This movie, the way that it starts, they just basically say like, hey, Castle Grayskull, the sorceress is like, she lives in there and Skeletor captures her and blah, blah, blah. So for me watching this initially, like I remember He-Man when it was like, when the toys initially came out and you would buy the He-Man toy and he had a gray sword and you bought the Skeletor toy and he had a purple sword. And Skeletor's mission was he wanted to get He-Man's sword, and they combine them and it becomes the sword of Grayskull, and that's like where all the power comes from. When the cartoon starts, it's about Skeletor. He doesn't give a fuck about the sword anymore because he has he has the Staff of Chaos, which he has in this cartoon. And believe me, I don't remember all this. I looked it up.
Do they call it the Staff of Chaos at any point in this movie?
No, they don't. So don't.
Okay, that
you will
that
not be
would have
quizzed.
made me.
Yeah.
That would have made me like the movie more if he was walking around like screaming about the Staff of Chaos.
Staff of
I don't know what
Chaos.
that is.
But the thing, like the
would have
cartoon,
been more funny.
The cartoon even changes what the lore of He-Man is, and then this movie goes into it, and they just jump right off the bat, like, "Hey, Skeletor's captured Castle Grayskull. He's got the sorceress in his control. The sorceress is the person that holds all the power in Castle Grayskull, and that's Skeletor wants that, right? He has her captured. He's going to suck all her power off of her. Hey, cool." All that, right? They don't go into any of that. So I had to like go back deep in the memory bank to be like, wasn't it about a sword initially? Yeah, it was about a sword. Then it became about Castle Great. So it's very hard for a person. I'm so very sorry for kind of like talking, exhaustively about this, but you have to know
it's
a lot.
It's okay. You're He-Mansplaining. It's okay.
Yes, I'm He-Mansplaining. Good. That's a nice one, John. You have to go into this knowing a lot of shit about this for it to make any sense at all. So I can totally, I didn't know that you didn't know about that you didn't watch the cartoon. You would have been too young for it, if anything. So
okay.
The thing that actually makes a lot of sense.
It was around. I'm sure it was on occasionally in my house.
I never missed an episode. None of my friends ever missed an episode. So
yeah, see,
I'm like the exact 180 of you. You like, yeah, it's probably on, and I may have caught an episode. I was like, I watched every one.
Yeah, see, I think I said this before, but like He-Man and the Turtles, like they're on, and like I'm sure I had some of the toys because I was a kid, but I don't know, whatever. I was a Ghostbusters kid. That's what was the one that I watched religiously. So not saying one's better. I really don't care. One's not better. They're just
I'm old as shit. I don't care what was better than the other.
I was a dumb kid. Whatever.
I was,
but
too.
No, I literally like again. I know of it. I remember there being a like tiger that had a green helmet or something, but which is not in this movie.
And Cringer.
Okay.
Cringer was the one before he transformed into Battle Cat, much like Prince Adam, who's never talked about in this entire movie. Is He-Man when he's not He-Man. He was this Prince Adam.
I think I knew that. I think I knew that part. But doesn't he do some kind of like transformer type thing to turn into He-Man?
He just says, by the power of Grayskull, I have the power. And that he has the sword. And that turns him into He-Man. which
he does that in the last
again,
20 seconds of the movie.
Yeah, he says it, but it's almost like fan service to be like, yeah, you know that thing you like? We're going to just have him do that because everybody's going to watch this and be like, why the fuck didn't that guy say the thing? So I got to say the thing. It's the end of the movie. I mean, what the fuck kind of movie would this be if I didn't say the thing? Anyways, so yeah, the movie, I can totally understand. Now, we'll get into it. This will not like cloud any kind of perception about how good or how bad this movie is. But
oh no, I'm pretty well set on how I feel about that.
Oh, I'm absolutely sure that you are, and I am too. And I think we're on the same page. But I think it needs to be said, prefacing this whole conversation, is this movie expects you to know shit about the He-Man. And if my mom went into this and she didn't probably pay attention to this fucking bullshit, she's gonna go into this movie and she's like, this movie was shit. Sean wanted to watch this, that little fucking idiot. Yeah, I'll take the idiot kid to go see this stupid movie about this stupid shit. But Dolph Lundgren, he's rippled and he's fucking wet looking, so he's probably pretty hot. And that's going to be clipped for a short on YouTube, I know. So anyways, whatever.
Might be.
He's wet and rippled. He's pretty hot. Hey, my love for Dolph Lundgren, at least as a physical specimen.
Physical.
Yes.
Yeah.
Knows no bounds. He might be a shithead.
So,
but
is he? I don't know. I have not heard that.
I don't know.
I know he's smart.
It's like a
like
biochemist or
mathematician
something
like that.
Yeah, some sciencey STEM guy. Anyway,
smart guy.
Yeah.
So, aside from Dolph Lundgren, apparently, or you can say Dolph Lundgren again if you want. That's fine, because I feel like this is going to be the most of a stretch for this episode. What do you like about this movie?
I think so. You touched on one of the things that I was going to touch on. I think, we talk about these days. We talk about Chris Hemsworth. We talk about Chris Pratt and their body transformations for the Marvel movies and whatnot. But Dolph Lundgren, like, he was not a small man in general at this time, but he looks fucking huge in this movie. And like you said, I don't know of any actor in the 80s that, just from a physical standpoint, could have pulled off what you would expect from a He-Man actor or character or whatever. So this was spot on casting. I
mean, my next best guess might have been, I don't know, maybe Jean-Claude, just because he's sometimes got the hair for it, but he's not nearly as good.
I think Dolph is like smack dab in that he has. For me, this is perfect casting. So, anyways,
I agree with you. I'm just saying, like, the only other person that if I'm gonna
SoundCloud, but okay,
continue.
Anyways, all right. So, I want to say, like, right off the bat, this movie starts with a sound-alike theme of Superman and kind of mixed with a little bit of Star Wars, and it's
Flash
like
Gordon.
Yeah, it's like in the 90s and the mid 90s, every TV sitcom commercial or commercial product had that like sound alike Two Princes by Spin Doctors music. Like instead of dun 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 dun, it'd be like dun 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 dun, and it's just like that kind of thing. It sounds like they said, let's make this song sound as close to John Williams as we can without getting sued. And it's like, dude, what the fuck? I think it's funny that they used this, like, I don't know exactly what year the car was that they start driving around, the land boat that they start driving around in, but it's probably a 57 Chevy, because it's like the 80s and everybody is like nostalgia. They have nostalgia boners for the 50s in the 80s, which I think is just hilarious. And I'll let you talk after this one. I think this is going to be a little bit of a long one.
You can talk as long as you want.
You don't have any other likes? You don't have any likes?
You just keep talking, whatever you want to talk.
All right, cool. Thanks. Appreciate that. Thanks for letting me have the floor here. James Loken is amazing. He's chewing the scenery anytime he's on screen. His character feels so out of place. He has this like Brooklyn accent that he puts on, or some kind of New York style accent that he puts on in the middle of
the only person in this entire fucking movie, good guy or bad guy, that can shoot someone.
No, He-Man shoots somebody. What do you mean?
He-Man shoots at people. He's the only
people that he hits the soldiers all the time.
I don't think he does.
They hit soldiers constantly. The guys in the black.
So let me rephrase. Let me rephrase it,
please.
He-Man's supposed to use a fucking sword, not a gun. So,
but he shoots people. He shoots a shit ton of people in this movie. We must have watched a different movie, not watched the same movie.
We might as well have. I mean,
anyway, yeah, probably. I couldn't wait until James Loken was on the screen again, because I was tickled pink anytime he came on. My favorite scene of his, they have this big gunfight, because He-Man and Man-at-Arms don't shoot anybody. Tila doesn't shoot anybody. There's this big gunfight, just shit's going off. Although I'm totally being sarcastic there. But they're shooting all these people. James Loken comes out. He has the shotgun. And he's standing in front of that car. And the soldiers come up. And he's like, hey, you guys, freeze. And all the soldiers turn around. They start firing on the car. And James Loken just kind of ducks behind it. The car bursts into this huge fireball. And they show James Loken. And he just has some soot on his face. And he's like, holy shit, I think we need some backup. Like, dude, you were standing next to a car that exploded into a fireball, like a Hiroshima style mushroom cloud. And you're just like, you have some soot on your face, really? Anyways, I also found it utterly hilarious, the scene with He-Man flying around on the flying Segway thing. And when they show him from far away, it almost just looks like a He-Man doll standing on a cake topper or something flying around. And I thought that it's chroma keyed. It looks fucking horrible, but it's hilarious. And Gwildor fucking around with the keyboard after Courtney Cox gets zapped by Skeletor's like force lightning or something. And her leg looks like it has space herpes or some shit all over it. And Gwildor is just, Billy Barty's just playing with the keyboard. Oh, he's like, just like doing scales on the keyboard and shit. And she's writhing in pain. That's just, I loved it. I was a hog and shit for that 5 seconds of that scene. So John, please tell me about your likes of this movie, because clearly you love it.
Most of the stuff that I like in this movie is just weird, quirky things that don't make any sense at all, but are little like throwaway scenes. Like there's a scene where whatever the kid's name is, the human that the bad guys are chasing,
Kevin or something. Is it Kevin?
Yeah, whatever. He goes back to his like girlfriend's house, and for some reason he puts all of her Burger King trash and 2 perfectly fine oranges into the sink before they like blow out the fucking door and start like roughing him up. It's just weird. It's like, okay, so if he's gonna tidy up, why is he just throwing this mix of garbage and like edible food in the sink? Like just little quirky stuff like that. And speaking of Lubick, I thought it was really funny that, one, it's really convenient that this, like, Anytown, USA, and I'm assuming California or whatever, is completely fucking deserted for this, like, space invasion from Skeletor and his goons. Like, there's no one on the streets at any point in this entire movie, except for the dork working at the music store that happens to have like 1 billion keyboards in it. That also serves as a front for them to go have a little intergalactic like gunfight in it for some reason. So little quirky stuff like that. I'm kind of watching it. I'm like, all right, this is a kid's movie. So like quirky shit like that kind of makes sense. Like they're not going to just have like, a RoboCop amount of guys walking around on the street to get shot in the dick or something like that. As much as that might have been cooler.
Should have.
Yeah, that's not going to be in this movie. So I found stuff like that to be kind of funny or kind of entertaining. That's kind of the bulk of it. Again, Dolph Lundgren as He-Man, I have no complaints about. I'm not going to go as far to say that I liked it per se, because there's a lot of shortcomings there. I just don't blame him for those shortcomings.
Yeah,
I think that's a whole
much bigger
thing.
problems than Dolph Lundgren being He-Man in this movie.
And speaking of problems, let's go ahead and start with Gwildor. Did Gwildor have a stroke? Is that why his face is all droopy on one side and like not on the other? And he's got one eye that's always kind of.
I think that's just.
Did Gwildor have a stroke?
I think that's just Billy Barty's thing. He's always had that like cockeyed looking thing.
There's enough prosthetics on him in this that like why even bother?
Yeah, he looks like a nutsack.
Well, Gwildor is pretty much a nutsack because he's the Jar Jar Binks of this movie, but short.
That's kind of an insult to Gwildor, I think. He's okay, better than
maybe
Jar Jar.
He's a little more use. He serves a purpose in the movie, so he's better than that. Like he's got something to do, and he's got plot points in it. But he's obnoxious as shit. And if I were a parent in 1987 and my kid wanted to watch this 30 times, this tape might accidentally get broken or taped over with something else.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh. I taped over Days of Our Lives. I didn't know this was your He-Man tape.
I'm sorry. I thought you wanted to watch 60 minutes.
I thought you wanted 6 hours of infomercials. I'm sorry. Ron Popeil.
Exactly.
Set it and forget it. You want some spray on hair? Oh, shit. Sorry, Gwildor. No Gwildor, but spray on hair. We got that for days.
Someone's watching his found footage. Yeah, I mean, this is as good a place as any to talk about like other things not to like, though. I guess the biggest problem with this movie is just it's not interesting. It's not well produced. It's not. We both like bad movies that are shittily made and kind of turned into like things that are entertaining, not necessarily for the right reasons. This doesn't do any of that. Like, it's just,
It looks cheap.
it looks
very
cheap.
cheap.
And if you're looking at it through the eye, I mean, this is kind of like what we said about Santa with Muscles, Ernest Saves Christmas, and even RoboCop 3 to an extent. If you're watching this as like an 8-year-old, it's probably fine. There's probably enough shit in there to keep an 8-year-old, you know, moderately entertained for a little bit. But, you know, the telltale sign that this movie isn't very good is that there's not like a bunch of people in roughly our age bracket running around singing praises of this movie because of how much they loved it as a kid. Seems like most people that saw it as a kid probably saw it once or twice. Maybe I don't know if this made the rounds on cable or not. Like, I could totally see this being like a TNT, like in the afternoon movie or something like that. But it doesn't seem like the kind of movie that like people warmed up to, or just because they had, you know, this is from that era where you had, if you had this movie, or if this is what was on, so you watch it 27 times because it was what was on. I don't ever hear anyone say, you know what, I've watched He-Man 1,000 times and I'm gonna buy the 4K Steelbook and watch it again.
Is there one?
I don't know. I can find out for you. But what about you? How are your feelings on the other side of the coin for He-Man?
Yeah, I mean, I think I kind of said a lot of it about, you know, like if you didn't know anything, you wouldn't care. But like none of these characters look like anyone they're supposed to. Billy Barty as Gwildor looks horrible. And I think Gwildor is supposed to be kind of like the cheaped out version of Orko. So in the cartoon, Orko was this little wizard dude that like didn't have legs and he didn't have a face. He was just black, and I think he had gloves, and he was like a robe that floated around basically. Every non-human character looks like they're covered in about 3 inches of turds. The gruesome foursome that Evil Lynn sends initially to Earth to retrieve the crappy looking key, they look like shitty 70s monsters or something. There's Beastman, who looks like a melted Chewbacca. There's a character Karg who looks like Thing 1 or Thing 2 from Dr. Seuss. Every costume person looks fucking horrible, as I mentioned before. Gwildor just looks like a big walking nutsack, like nutsack cheeks. His nose is like the penis and his cheeks are like the nutsack, like the left ball and the right ball. These characters, they come from Eternia and they come to Earth, and they don't know, when they initially get to Earth, they don't know where they are. They don't know what time they're in. And they figure it's a good idea just to put anything that they think is food in their mouth. So they infiltrate like a chicken and ribs place, and they don't know about food with bones in it. Like, what do you eat on Eternia? I guess they never really cover anything about like what they eat. And the people,
I also never cared.
Yeah, I mean, but I'm just like, they never talk. I mean, if I think back, like they never talk about in He-Man like what they eat. I don't think. Maybe there are episodes where they're having this big feast, but I just don't think like, oh my God, we're eating animals. Yeah, that's food here. Sorry. The people are really stupid. They find a crazy thing in the woods, which is Gwildor's second key, and they just start pushing buttons all over it. And the guy, Kevin, thinks he's a musician, so he thinks it's a keyboard or a synthesizer. Oh, it's a new Japanese synthesizer. Yeah, it looks just like a synthesizer. You got shit fucking floating around on it. The last big thing for me, like I said, they don't explain anything about Castle Grayskull except for that like 10 seconds in the very beginning. So they go out of their way to tell you at the very beginning that Skeletor captured the sorceress and Grayskull, Castle Grayskull, but they don't get into why he does it. Like there's no, like I said, I think my big complaint about this movie is if you go into a movie, if you're like you, who doesn't know anything about He-Man, and I'm not like trying to say that it's a bad thing. You just don't know anything about it, and that's fine. This movie is not like a movie that you could even consider to be an evergreen movie. People aren't going to stumble upon this movie and be like, man, that Masters of the Universe told this awesome story, because it's not going to make sense to anybody because they don't know what the fuck this is supposed to be about. And I think that's the big dislike that I have, is they had so many things that they could have made a Masters of the Universe movie about at the time to try and cash in on the license, or to cash in, on the phenomena that was the toy. This is a great example of toys that were created. A cartoon that was created to sell toys. Like Transformers was one. Yep. He-Man was like the poster child for it. They put new characters in the show to sell more toys.
You can make the argument that Ghostbusters and Ninja Turtles hit that too.
Ghostbusters had a source material. Ninja Turtles had source material.
Right.
He-Man and Transformers were a cartoon made by toy companies to sell toys. So that's the point I'm getting at. They didn't, even though it's a movie, a cartoon series that's made to sell toys, they don't even include 75% of the toys, of the characters from these toys in this movie. Nobody knows who the fuck Blade or Karg or this other fucking, like, Beastman's the only enemy other than Skeletor and maybe Evil-Lyn that anybody would know if they even knew the shit. Teela, He-Man, Man-at-Arms are the three people that you would know from the cartoon that are the good guys. It's just shitty. There should have been a better movie for this franchise at the time. That's what I'm getting at.
There is no steelbook of Masters of the Universe from 1987. There is a Blu-ray, VHS tapes. It's weird. If you look on eBay, that you can find them for about $20, but they're $113 on Amazon. So go figure.
Buy from eBay, I guess.
Yeah, well, for sure. I'm just gonna shit on stuff if we keep going here. Like, I don't really have a lot to say. So unless you have more you want to add, we can wrap this up whenever.
Yeah, I don't need to say more about it. I think we're pretty much, we've said what we need to say.
Then you're in for a big treat, bro, because it's hot dog time.
But why don't you go first on this one?
All right. I mean, I'm not going to really say much that I haven't already said, but the movie is basically a fever dream that, I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. I think the major problem, like I said, I've said it this entire time, the major issue with this movie, other than it just being shittily made and whatever, is that, number one, you need to know the source material. Like we said, I know the source material, you don't. If you don't know anything about He-Man, the Masters of the Universe franchise, this movie isn't going to hit any mark for you because you're not going to know anything about the franchise to understand what the fuck's going on anyways, who the characters are, why they're doing what they're doing. Number two, if you do know anything about the He-Man and the Masters of the Universe franchise, the movie resembles nothing about the franchise that you would recognize. They took characters from the cartoon. They committed basically the cardinal sin of not even putting them in the same universe of anything that you would know from the idea of the series. And basically, by doing that, you alienate anybody that would have any interest in anything to do with this movie. I don't know what it is, though, but for some freakish reason, I wasn't nearly as bored with the movie because I just kind of was like, yeah, this is dumb as fuck and it doesn't make any sense and it really doesn't have anything to do with the cartoon. But I kind of like Schadenfreude or something. I just kind of actually enjoyed it a little bit. I give it a half a hot dog. I'm not saying it's a good movie. I don't feel like it's good by any stretch of the imagination, but I thought it was like watchable at least. It's full of crappy low budget costumes. The special effects are just trash. But like if I was given the choice to watch this or RoboCop 3, I would watch this. And I love RoboCop. RoboCop 3 is just a piece of shit. So I feel like we're coming off the heels of like another crappy movie. I'd just rather watch this. I'd give it a half hot dog again. It's not great, but I don't know. I could have done worse things with my time. Yeah.
Whose hot dog is this, huh? Is it yours?
To me, the cardinal sin is that this movie has the Canon logo at the beginning of it, and it still sucks. It's a turd. I don't like it, and I look forward to never watching again. And with that in mind, we were going to ask you to come out on the 28th of May because we're going to be showing this movie at Franks and Stein's. This was a movie that was requested by a audience member, so I'm sorry if I pissed you off if you're listening to this. Talk to Sean. He knows more about He-Man than I do. But you can come out, you can hang out with us and have a beer. We're going to watch this movie. I might be ignoring it pretty heavily, but it will be on. It will definitely be on. We're going to be at Batchspring on the 28th. If I didn't say that already, 7 o'clock. There's no cost to come in or anything like that. Just come hang out with us and watch some He-Man bullshit. Aside from that, you can find us at Dewey Pod Monster on all the social medias, with the exception of Blue Sky, where we are at crap.town. You can go to our site, which is crap.town. You can leave us feedback there or find all of our episodes, new, old, or otherwise, on there. We do have a YouTube channel, so please do subscribe, like, whatever you want to do on there. That would be cool. We're on every major podcast platform. We do have a Patreon now, so anyone who's already joined, thank you for that. And if you'd like to join, there's a whole bunch of different tiers that you can check out. And last and certainly not least, we are proud members of the You Run Podcast Network. You can find all of our old episodes, new episodes, and upcoming episodes there as well. And you can also find all the other great shows on the You Run Podcast Network at yourunpodcast.com. Sean, I just spoke more than I did for the rest of this episode. What did I forget?
You forgot that He-Man is awesome. But anyways, you can, if you want to watch any of the stuff that we talked about early in the show, the really only thing we talked about was Hulk Hogan, Real American. You can find that linked in the show notes. Generally, we try and make those things free. In this case, we can't because it's on Netflix. There's not really like a free way to watch it unless you already have Netflix. And I would argue in that case, it's not free. Anyways, we leave all the stuff about the stuff that we talked about in the show notes. Go to it. It's at crap.town. It's in your podcast player. You might not know that, but it is. It's right in there. You just go in there, you look, and you can read all the show notes because they're always chock full of great information. If you want to check me out, I am at Blue Sky exclusively at internalbleeding.crap.town. Check me out. Sometimes I post stuff, sometimes I don't. That's all I got for you. John, back to you.
That's it, Butthorns. By the power of Grayskull, we'll be back next week. Cheers.
Bird season's over, Butthorn.
That's like shitting your pants and changing your shirt.
Maybe we did watch 2 different movies this week.